Hello and welcome back to the Audible Finish, where we discuss the week gone by in the world of wrestling. I'm your host, Dimitri Kalos, and alongside me, as always, is my esteemed co-host, Thanasi. Welcome back, Thanasi.
Salutations and peace. I'm so happy to be back on the show yet again.
In today's episode, we review the targeted promos of The Rock and Cody Rhodes against one another and discuss who we think won the battle. We also discuss the WrestleMania developments, including the announcement of the US Championship match between Logan Paul, Randy Orton, and Kevin Owens. Later on, we will go deep into our bag of trivia with two quizzes, one on the history of WrestleMania and the other all about one of its strongest performers ever, The Undertaker. If you are enjoying the podcast and have a moment, please like, share, and subscribe. And if there is a certain topic that interests you more than the other, please feel free to jump ahead to it using the timestamps in the description below. On that note, Thanasi, let's dive straight into the first discussion for this episode, and that is the Cody Rock promo battles. It was one mixed on two different shows. Obviously, on SmackDown, The Rock decided to give us a concert, which was a bit, shit, in my opinion. And then had a promo on top of that. Cody retorted on Raw. What did you think before we get into specific points, what did you think in general on the combination of these two? Because for me, it felt like Cody Rhodes' response has made it more interesting, more engaging than the initial Rock segment, which some people were very into. I wasn't necessarily one of them.
I think what it was is that because unless you're announcing some new angle to the storyline, and I mean to the storyline, not to the story, a promo in and of itself doesn't give you all that much unless it's delivered really, really well. So when it comes to The Rock, we've kind of squeezed the lemon as much as The Rock's utility, I believe. But by having it in the form of a concert, at least it mixed things up and had some room for something a little bit different, something we haven't seen before. That being said, I mean, he was taking screen time away from wrestlers. Like he took 20 minutes off what could have been people that want to get onto the card or want to deserve their spot on the card at WrestleMania. In contrast, Cody Rhodes went out there and really, I think, actually showed some edge, showed a bit of flavor to his character. And yes, I know you don't need to always be swearing to get over. I get that. But since The Rock has been using cuss words on his off WWE social media promos, I think that the only way to make it look as if Cody Rhodes has balls is for him to do that same thing on television, right? And I want to be very clear about this. I'm not saying everyone needs to swear, but if you're giving one guy ammunition, it makes the others look weak. So you have to put them on a similar platform, don't you think?
I do think, and we'll get into what Cody was saying. I wanted to quickly add in your comment about if you're not adding something to the storyline, it's not as interesting. That's why I actually liked The Rock's promo. I didn't really like his concert. I liked his promo because that's now him trying to bring in the angle with Cody Rhodes' mother and the whole thing of I'm going to use this belt to beat him up, and this is the only belt your family is going to have. I like that. And I'm curious to see how that develops in the actual match. But in the concert and in the promo, The Rock was coming out with some disses like, you're going to have no choice but to cry to your mama after you lose. That Cody Rhodes turned out too weird with a Stardust photo popping up. Then saying, that's when Dusty said to himself that drugs and cheap condoms are a bad combination and that Cody was a mistake. So these are all like these insults that he had targeted at Cody. Uh, what did you think of the quality of these insults that I said?
Look, in general, mothers should be off limits, right? Like keep my mother's name out of your damn mouth. And I think that what would be really edgy for Cody Rhodes to do is for him to come out on television, on SmackDown potentially, and say, The Rock stooped to the level of bringing up my mother. I'm not going to stoop to that level. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up The Rock's grandmother, the former promoter, the widow of High Chief Peter Maivia. I think that that would be an even better way for him to come out, and that would, because he's going to be facing Roman. I think that would be one way to really, really infuriate Roman, because yes, it's not his yaya, but if mothers are off limits, imagine how red hot it would be to bring up yayas,
Or grandmothers for those who don't know.
grandmothers for the non-Greek speakers.
Yes. Let's not, let's not make it too narrow of an audience for us. Yeah, look, perhaps, but I also think that with Cody that it's not necessarily the right take for him to have. In his promo, he on Raw, he started off saying, about how The Rock was starting to refer to himself as a heel in his personal social media, and he says, "Rock, I don't think you're a heel. I think you're an asshole." Now that got a good reaction out of the fans, and I think that in itself was probably the biggest pop in terms of insults that was shared between the two. And he obviously claimed as well that the Rock took a shot at him for crying, but then he replied that look, I may have cried on camera about how much I want to win this for my family, whereas you're crying behind the scenes because I was getting more interest than you. Again, I think we don't know how real that is, but it's a good line. He says that he's a terrible salesman, a carny succubus, a whiny bitch, and asks him, "Are you going to bring the Great One to WrestleMania, or is it going to be LDS, Little Dick Syndrome?" And then he even says at WrestleMania, "I don't think you're going to be the final boss. I think you're just going to be Roman's side chick." I think, regarding the question of who won the battle, I truly think Cody Rhodes won it. Because I think The Rock did it in a very, haha, this is funny way, whereas Cody Rhodes just came out there, all guns blazing. And I think he did win it.
I certainly think he won it. But can I just bring this up? Yes, Cody won it, but he won a, can we call it a promo exchange or a promo battle against someone who's not the world heavyweight champion, or the in this case WWE Universal Champion. I'm using lowercase letters here. So that's why I'm actually really excited for the face-off between him and Roman. And I'm excited for what I think is a wrong reason. It's because we're actually seeing a challenger and a number one contender come face to face in the ring, no one else. We should have, they should be expected, they should be standard, but because it's been a frolicking parallel to this other co-main event, it feels different, it feels fresh. And maybe that's intentional, maybe that's the way they've been doing it, but I don't know. I would have preferred a bit more of a coherent, just one stream to the storyline, if you get what I mean. But let's see how the segment turns out, because we're teasing interference and other people getting involved.
I get the argument. I think that because of them having done this last year, they wanted to pile on further on the bloodline advantage. So we'll see. But I'm with you. I really want to see these two just in the ring having another promo exchange face to face. I think that's what we all want. Some of the other things, obviously, on SmackDown, to move on to the other storylines being built up, we had the confirmation of Logan Paul versus Kevin Owens versus Randy Orton for the US Championship, and AJ Styles versus LA Knight as a grudge match at WrestleMania. Now, considering this is LA Knight's debut Mania match, a guy like AJ Styles, even if it's not for a title, is an excellent sparring partner. And for the US Championship, it's not exactly what I expected of him, but Randy Orton always brings it, and this is going to be his first Mania since the injury, so you can imagine that he's going to want to leave a good mark. This is, and then on top of that, we have the return of Rey Mysterio, and we don't know yet what he's going to do at Mania, but strong suspicion is it has to do something with Santos Escobar. So it's nice to see some of these legends finally getting their Mania matches booked, because guys like Mysterio, Styles, Randy Orton, they deserve to be on every Mania that they're available. I don't know, what did you think? What do you think now that these things have been confirmed and we've got at least a couple more weeks to just sort of add ammunition to those different fires?
I'm happy that we're fleshing out the card, because I think that the more matches you have announced early, the slow burn can actually take place. Whereas if you're waiting for the announcement, it's almost as like, come on, like let's hear what's going to be on the card. Like let's actually get selling. Let's advertise. Let's put people in the posters. Create those graphics that facing each other graphic. So I think that the card is actually shaping up pretty nicely. Like we've got a lot of really worthwhile wrestlers that are in a really good period of their careers, if I can put it that way. They're in kind of a local peak. LA Knight and AJ Styles, I would describe as the exception for the booking. What do I mean by that? Kevin Owens has long been in a great period in his career. Randy Orton is just coming back from a big injury and is going into a somewhat prominent mid-card storyline. Cody Rhodes is hot. Roman is hot. Logan Paul, a celebrity, albeit a recent one, but he's doing really well in his performances. Yes, he can hone his craft, but everyone's looking strong. LA Knight should be, I think, in a bit more of a prominent position. But that being said, he is getting a singles match against AJ Styles. I think there is room for better. But nevertheless, I digress. We've also got the Uso storyline coming together as well. So the overall card is going to be pretty juicy, I would say.
Yeah, and as you alluded to on Raw, we had an actual confrontation between Jay and Jimmy, and actually I thought that was an excellent way to start off Monday Night Raw. And I'm very excited to see those two paired up, square up in the ring. And the commentary noted it's going to be the third brother versus brother match at WrestleMania. The last time being WrestleMania 25 between the Hardys, and the time prior to that was the Bret Hart and Owen Hart at WrestleMania 10. So obviously, it's not the sort of match you get happening regularly at Mania, which I think is adding to the spectacle of it. And on top of that, Sammy and Gunther had a really good Intercontinental Championship contract signing where they're building up the underdog in Sami Zayn, which I think is wise heading into this match. Plus, you've got even guys like DIY and New Day qualifying for the six-team ladder match for the WWE tag titles. So you're right. Like it does feel like this card is starting to form in a really nice way. That seems exciting.
We also had the Awesome Truth join in.
Of course,
Um,
of course.
One thing that I'm hoping is a blow off is this Becky Lynch and Nia Jax storyline. I think it's overstayed its welcome, and with that confrontation, it wasn't physical; it was just a face to face in the dying seconds of Raw between Becky Lynch and Mummy Rhea Ripley. That one's going to be, honestly, I think one of the matches that is going to be one of those non-main event show stealers, like a TLC 2, like a Rock versus Hogan, like a Shawn Michaels versus Jericho at 19. It's the one that's not booked as the last match, but is the one where the wrestlers go out there and say, you know what, let's bloody steal the show. Let's use every second we've got. Because Rhea and Charlotte did that last year at WrestleMania Saturday. So I think she's going to try to do something similar with Becky Lynch this time.
Well, we can only hope, and I think that they've sort of fallen victim to the fact that their storyline is not the most exciting thing going on. And I'm not just talking about the bloodline, I'm even talking about on the women's side. The story between Bayley and Io Sky is more interesting and has had more development. So you can almost feel like with Rhea and Becky, it's being billed as just a high quality match between two stars. It's not being there's not as much behind it in terms of the story.
I would actually describe it as in contrast to the Io versus Bayley match, which is the long-term storytelling. Rhea versus Becky is that very, very traditional WrestleMania main event where it's just biggest babyface versus biggest heel, and let's put them together because that's going to be the draw. Like that's the one that's going to pull eyes onto it because of the star power, not because of the story. And it's a well honored tradition as well. So the fact that it's there is no surprise in the slightest.
All right, well, now let's move on to our next segment, which is a WrestleMania themed quiz. With WrestleMania 40 just around the corner, what better way is there to reflect on the decades of history involving the greatest spectacle in wrestling than having a good old-fashioned quiz? My co-host, Thanasi, has graciously stepped into the ring to answer 10 questions that I have on the subject of WrestleMania? Feel free to play along at home and let us know in the comments how many questions you got correct. Thanasi, there is only one thing left for me to ask before we officially start, and that is, are you ready?
Much like the fans at every DX promo. Yeah, I'm ready.
Question number one. In what year was the first WrestleMania?
First WrestleMania, I believe. So we are in 2024 now. We have to go back 39 years, not 40 years, because we didn't start at WrestleMania 0. And that would take us to the year 1985.
That is correct. Question number two. Which wrestler has competed at the most WrestleMania events?
Oh, this is actually a really good one. So it's not even about wins and losses. However, I am going to select The Undertaker because he's had close to 30 or so WrestleMania appearances, and out of 40, that's a massive conversion ratio. And I'm not sure there's anyone else that actually has come close because they've extended him so much, intentionally trying to get the streak there. So Undertaker is my answer.
And Undertaker is the correct answer. He's competed at 27, which is quite impressive, must say.
Remarkable.
Question number three. Including WrestleMania 40, who will have been or has been in the most WrestleMania main events?
Oh, okay. Most WrestleMania main events. Let me actually count these out. I think it's between either Roman or Hogan. Hogan was at WrestleMania ones, twos, threes, not fours, not fours. It was at 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to count 9 as well because that was the last match, technically, even though he wasn't billed. So that gets us to 8. And you said most WrestleMania main events. Well, I got to 10, he was gone. Okay, that's Hogan. Roman Reigns was in 31, 32, 33, 34, not 35. That was the women's triple threat. Not 36 either because he was out during the pandemic. He was at 37, he was at 38, and he was at 39. That gets us to 7. So Hulk Hogan.
You neglected the first part of my question, which was including WrestleMania 40. And including WrestleMania 40, Roman Reigns goes from 7 to 9. So he will eclipse Hulk Hogan. And as that was part of the question, I'm going to have to count that as incorrect on your part.
Hold on, when you say he goes from 7 to 9, you're counting the night 1 main event as a main event.
Yes, because that's my decision that night 1 main events count as main events.
Well, la-di-da.
Question number 4. Which venue has hosted WrestleMania the most times?
Oh, okay, this one's hard. Let's think here. Which venue, not which city, right?
Which venue?
So if it's okay. I'm thinking of some of just the repeat ones. So I know Detroit, I think, has had either 2 or 3. Madison Square Garden, I think, has had. I think two are coming to mind, but maybe there's one that I'm missing. So I'm thinking that maybe that's 3 as well. Houston definitely has 2. Oh, Houston had 17, 25, and 38. And I think 32 maybe counts as Houston as well, Arlington. So I think I'm actually going to go with Houston, Texas.
It's not a venue, but if you had it correct, I would have counted it. The correct answer was one that you already named, and that was Madison Square Garden, which had 3.
Oh, so
So
no one else has had 3.
no other venue has had 3.
No other venue has had 3. So they've been in cities.
And that's right. Obviously, America is very vast, geographically, and has lots of really big arenas and stadia around.
What were the three for Madison Square Garden? It was 10, 20, and
The very first.
WrestleMania 1 was at Madison Square Garden. Okay.
Question number 5. Which WrestleMania was the first to be referred to in Roman numerals?
So WrestleMania 1 didn't have a number. And therefore, logically, it's WrestleMania 2. Even though the Roman numerals convention continued for a very long time, but it did begin with WrestleMania 2.
That is,
Actually,
do you want to lock that
I've
in?
got the poster in my head, and I think in my head it's like, I don't know why, but I'm imagining like a graphic that is composed of like three red lines that compose the letter 2 in Hindu Arabic. So maybe it's 3.
Do you want to lock in 3?
I'm gonna lock in 3.
That's some good thinking, Thanasi, because 3 is actually the correct answer.
Oh,
As you had it correct, WrestleMania 2, they still had the lines that indicated 2, as we know it. WrestleMania 3 was the first time they used Roman numerals. The more you know, huh?
the more you think about it.
Question number 6. What is the longest match in WrestleMania history?
Oh, okay. Well, the one that's coming to mind straight away is the Iron Man match at WrestleMania 12. And I mean, that was 62 minutes or something like that. I'm trying to think of, was there anything that possibly went longer than that? We've had Hell in a Cells. We've had four-way elimination matches. No, but surely a 62-minute Iron Man match has to take the cake. So I'm going to go with WrestleMania 12, Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels.
That is the correct answer, Thanasi. It came in at 1 hour, 1 minute, and 36 seconds. And quite frankly, I mean, it would take quite the match to ever break that record. On a similar note, question number 7. What is the shortest match in WrestleMania history?
Okay, so I think the number that they've assigned to it, or the number of seconds, is not completely accurate, as were a number of things at that edition's WrestleMania. But I'm pretty sure it was WrestleMania 32, The Rock versus Eric Rowan, where I think Lillian Garcia even, who had returned to announcing around that time, she even announced, and here is your winner with a like record-breaking result or something like that. So I'm gonna go with that match, Rock versus Eric Rowan.
That is absolutely correct. The official time they give is 6 seconds. But obviously that may not be entirely accurate, as you mentioned. Question number 8. Which state has hosted WrestleMania the most times? You mentioned before cities, but which state has done it for the
So
most number of times?
I'm thinking of California, I'm thinking of Texas, Florida, and New York. When I think of these cities, I'm going to go with, well, we already said New York before. Madison Square Garden had 3, and that was at WrestleMania 1, 3, and 20. I think the next time that WrestleMania was in New York, or actually, no, I was going to say 29, but that one I believe counts as New Jersey. They had NYNJ, so I'm not going to count that as the same city, even though it's the same general area. With Florida, I know we've had Tampa Bay, had Orlando, had Miami. So that already takes us up to 3. And I think Miami was 28, Orlando was 24, Tampa Bay was going to be 36, 29, 30, 31. 31 was another in California. That's a California one. I'll come back to that. 32 was a Texas one. I will come back to that. 34 was New Orleans. 35 maybe was a New York one.
I
I
believe that was in
think.
New Jersey, if that helps.
Oh, okay. Maybe they had a takeover in New York or something like that, or around that 2019 time. 36 was pandemic. That counts as Florida, doesn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
it
So there
does.
we go. That's four. I said 37 before. 38 and 39. Okay. So I'm saying roughly four in Florida. Maybe they had one earlier than then, but that's what I'm going with for the moment. Texas. So there was 17, there was 25, there was 38. That's three. Surely they must have had some other one because those were all, I'm pretty sure, in Houston. But let me just allow for another number four. Um, let's keep thinking. California had the one in Hollywood, WrestleMania 16, had the 31 that I said before, had 21 as well. That was another Hollywood focused one. Chicago, Detroit, Orlando. Let's head backwards. 19 was Seattle, 18 was Canada, 15 was Philadelphia. Philadelphia is getting another one, and I think they've had this might be the third, but I can't imagine that there was much more than that.
Gonna have to press you for an answer, Thanassia. You've said many states. Which one's the one that you feel most confident in?
I am tossing up between Florida and New York, but I think I'm going to go with New York. New York, the state of New York.
The correct answer you were looking for was California,
Ah,
which has had it 7 times. So they've had
seven
it
times.
WrestleManias. So the first one, WrestleMania 2, that had 3 venues. I counted each one as a host
Mm-hmm.
state. Then it had WrestleManias 7, 12, 16, 21, 31, and obviously last year, 39. So it's had it quite a few times. Even I didn't realize how much until I was actually researching it.
The early ones, definitely number two and number seven, they would have tripped me up. I should have known 12 because I have seen many times that was when Shawn Michaels he won it in Anaheim, California. I've seen that on the stats many times. But yes, no, you're right. So that one was another Hollywood one.
Question number 9. After the very first edition, when was the Women's Championship next defended at WrestleMania?
Wait, after the what? When was it next defended?
After the very first edition.
Hmm. Okay, I know it was defended at WrestleMania 17 100%, 18 100%. At 16, I don't actually think it was because they had that weird throw you out of the ring stipulation between Terry and Miss Kitty or the cat. At 15, I did watch 15 recently, and I can't recall if it was defended. And there was a long hiatus as well where they didn't have the women's title. And for fear of, I'm going to go with the earliest one that I'm 100% certain of, and I'm going to go with WrestleMania 17.
I can't fault the logic, Thanasia. The correct answer was WrestleMania 10, and that
Oh,
was
okay.
Alundra Blaze versus Leilani Kai or Kay. And interestingly enough, Leilani
Medusa.
Kai was the person in the original match as well against Wendy Richter.
Oh,
So
okay.
that was just a little bit of a fun thing. And the final question, question number 10. Which WrestleMania was the first to not feature an Intercontinental Championship match?
The first to not feature one.
Obviously, it's a big title in the company and
Mm.
was part of many WrestleManias. When was the first time that it actually didn't make it onto the card?
Okay, well, that's a very interesting question. So I'm going to head backwards on the ones that I know of. So I'm pretty sure. What was is it in? I'm going to skip back quite a while because I know that it's been defended many times recently. So I'm thinking that definitely was at three because that was Ricky Steamboat versus Randy Savage. So I'm thinking about four onwards. Four had that tournament for the world title. So that might have been one way to knock it off the card potentially. I will come back to it. I know that it was also defended at six in a winner takes all between Warrior and Hogan. It was definitely defended at 16. That was the two fall match, the only match where you could say this match is scheduled for two falls, where I think it was Benoit took the Intercontinental Championship. At 15, I'm not entirely sure. I can't quite. Oh, actually, no. I think there was some kind of a defense, maybe um, with Jeff Jarrett potentially was in around that time. At 14, I think that was the one where Shamrock made The Rock tap, but the decision was then reversed. So 13 and back. 13, I'm not quite sure. Actually, it might have been maybe Razor was defending around that time. Not too sure there. I know 10 also has a very notable Intercontinental Championship match. However, for my logic, that because it was a one night tournament for the world title and maybe it just got pushed out of the off the card, that potentially it was that WrestleMania number 4. So that's my final answer.
The correct answer we were looking for was WrestleMania 12.
12.
So at WrestleMania 4, I actually, in your position, I probably would have said the same thing. But that actually had a match, Brutus Beefcake versus the Honky Tonk Man for the Intercontinental Championship. WrestleMania 12, funnily enough, it saw at the time the champion was actually Goldust. And instead of defending his title, he actually wrestled Roddy Piper in a, I think, Hollywood backlot brawl or something.
Yeah. So he was on the card and just
So he was on the
didn't
card, but
defend the strap.
for whatever reason, he didn't defend the strap, which I have no idea why. Then I see you finished with 5 out of 10, but considering this is a quiz on basically 40 years of history, I actually don't think that's bad at all.
I think I could have done a bit better, but I'm curious to see what our listeners and what the viewers did because this was it was a tricky quiz. It was a tricky one.
Let us know in the comments below how you did. All right, Thanasi, well, that was our first quiz of today's episode. Let's go on to our second one.
Quiz number 2.
WrestleMania is bigger than all wrestlers, but if there was one wrestler that represented it, it would probably be The Undertaker. The Phenom has competed in more WrestleMania matches than anyone else, and his streak gained legendary status to a point that it sometimes had more importance than the World Championship matches. In anticipation of WrestleMania 40, let's look back on the dead man's WrestleMania career with a quiz of 10 questions. Thanasi, you have graciously stepped up to the ring to answer my Undertaker-related questions at WrestleMania, but everyone at home, please feel free to play along and let us know in the comments how many questions you got correct. Thanasi, there is just one thing left for me to ask before we start, and that is, are you ready?
Once again, I am ready.
Question number 1. At which WrestleMania did The Undertaker first compete?
See, this one's a tricky one because if I tried counting backwards from his last streak match, which I often did, because he actually missed a couple, I often get confused. However, I am going to have a go. So the streak got to 21 and 0 as of WrestleMania 29. So he was at 15 and 0 as of WrestleMania 23. Counting backwards was he was 14 at 22, he was 13 at 21, he was 12 at 20, he was 10 at 18 because he actually indicated it to the crowd. he made the gesture after beating Ric Flair with 10 fingers, which means 9 against Triple H at 17. He was not at 16. That one has come to mind. He was 8 against Kane at 14. He was 7 at 13. 7 at 13. He was at 12. That was against Diesel. So that gets us to 6. I'm pretty sure he was at 10. That gets us to 5. He was at 9. Gets us to 4. He was at 8. Oh, maybe not at 8. See, this is where I'm starting to get fuzzy. Let's go with WrestleMania 7.
And I say by the skin of your teeth, you got it correct. WrestleMania 7.
Yeah.
The way I would have figured it out is having known he debuted in 1990 in Survivor Series 1990, I would have just best guess picked the Mania that was associated with 1991,
Oh,
which
okay.
of course was WrestleMania 7, but you got that correct in your own way. So kudos to you. And you mentioned it during your working out, so I might as well use them as my next questions. And that is, what number was the streak at when it was broken?
Oh, this one's a very easy one because we see the graphic all the time. The number was broken at 21 and 1.
That is absolutely correct. And as a follow-up, question number 3, who broke the streak?
Brock Lesnar or the Beast, Brock Lesnar.
All right, with those easier questions out of the way now, let's go to another one that a little bit harder, but I still think you'll find this easy. Question number 4, which wrestler has The Undertaker faced the most times at WrestleMania?
Did you ever play? Actually, I know that you played it because we played it together. I think it was either WrestleMania, I think it was SmackDown versus Raw 2009 or 2010, where Santino Marella in a promo is calling out The Undertaker saying something about his brother, whom he has faced 3 times at WrestleMania, right? There was a mistake in that because he hadn't faced Kane 3 times. He'd only faced Kane 2 times. The reason I know this is because later on down the track, after this I had learned this, it was something still in my mind at WrestleMania 28, when that was the third match that The Undertaker wrestled against Triple H.
That is absolutely correct. Triple H 3 times, and a great trilogy as well when you really look back on it. Question number 5. Which wrestler first explicitly challenged Undertaker in a match to end the streak?
I was watching this earlier this week, actually, and it was brought up. So, like I said before, it was against Ric Flair where he first made the reference to that's 10 that I've beaten. But it wasn't still for a few more years before other wrestlers would make references to The Undertaker's streak. And the first one to do that was 2005, the legend killer, Randy Orton.
That is absolutely correct. Question number 6. Now, this one, there have been numerous wrestlers that have been reportedly at one point in time or another suggested to break the streak. But at least according to my research, there is only one wrestler that ever went so far as to outright refuse it when the notion was brought up to them. So my question, in question number 6, which wrestler outright refused to break the streak?
Now, if I'm correct in my hypothesis, there's a nice little theory that I've got to accompany it. Now, I've heard that over the years that a lot of people were considered, yes, that I think even at one point Mark Henry was entertained where they were going up against each other, but that didn't even fizzle to the point of putting it to him. It was just an idea. Same thing with Kurt Angle as well. And I think he's someone who perhaps slightly more or perhaps slightly stronger than Mark Henry. He said, if it comes to it, I'm going to say no, or something to that effect. But the one that I'm quite confident with, because I'm pretty sure I've actually seen a video of him actually conducting this train of thought in an interview, was Edge, who said no. He denied it. Like, he was actually brought up to him and he said no, that this doesn't make sense for the story. I don't want to be the one to do it. Being in the main event would be enough. And the theory, before you tell me whether or not I'm right, the theory that I've got is I actually think that with Edge ruling it outright, saying absolutely not, that he also secured his spot in the main event. Because the alternative would have been putting him in the main event and having a heel win, which at WrestleMania, as of WrestleMania 24, I think had only occurred once, maybe twice in history. So if he had agreed to break the streak, it would not have happened in the main event. I think it would have happened perhaps in the semi-main, and then we would have had a babyface victory later in the card. Maybe even John Cena actually winning or something like that. So final answer is Edge. I've given you my theory. Tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Well, Thanasi, unfortunately, I'm not qualified enough to tell you whether your theory is correct, but Edge was the answer that I was looking for. As you said, he's actually outright said in public that it was put to him, and he said absolutely not. He basically believed that he didn't need it. And you know what? He was probably right. He never really needed the streak's validation. Question number 7. How many former WWE World Champions has The Undertaker faced at WrestleMania?
Face not defeated is what you said.
Faced.
Okay. This one is still going to be a very long list, and I'm going to do it all the way.
Okay.
He's faced AJ Styles. He's faced John Cena, Roman Reigns. He's faced, not Shane McMahon, Bray Wyatt. Now, we're going to say someone who maybe became, or someone who is now considered former, right? Not at the time. Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. So that's Bray Wyatt. Putting us back at 30 now. We've got Brock, Punk, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Edge. That gets us to 9. And we've got Batista. You said WWE champions, not world champions.
WWE World Champions. So,
Okay, world champions. So Mark Henry counts. Then we get to Randall Keith, Kane, The Big Show, not A-Train, The Big Show. Let's keep going. Ric Flair, yes. At 15, it was Bossman. 14 was Kane. 13, I think, was Sid. That was for the title. Diesel at 12. And now getting backwards from there. These are the 12 that I'm 100% certain of. And then there's some other people like King Kong Bundy and Jake the Snake, Jimmy Snuka. We've gone quite far back by this point. Giant Gonzalez. What I'm going to say is, for the pure reason that Hulk Hogan basically monopolized the world title around that time, I'm going to actually be pretty confident and go with those that I've said. So what did I say? 17 or 12 did I say?
I counted up to 17. Is that the number you want to go with?
Yeah, because I've got 7 fingers up and I counted 10 before, so I'm going to go with 17.
17 is the correct answer.
Oh.
And I was so confident in your abilities of recollection, that's why I didn't give you a leeway. At home, if you got within 2, I'll count it. Just to be nice.
Plus or minus 2.
But when you consider from his 27 Mania matches, he's faced 17 world champions at some point in WWE. That is quite impressive, and it says a lot about the caliber of matches and stars that he was facing.
And almost all of them were actually in the latest, like the final 17 opponents were almost all world champions. I mean, Shane McMahon was basically the exception, but Sting was a long-time world champion in WCW and a lot of the South.
Question number 8. How many times did The Undertaker compete inside Hell in a Cell at WrestleMania?
The number three comes to mind straight away because I'm just getting these visions of the one at 32 against Shane McMahon, the one at 28 against Triple H, and the one at 15 against Boss Man. So I'm going to lock that in three straight away.
And 3 is the correct answer.
Yeah, that's right. Finally, I don't actually have to think it out too much. It came to my head straight away.
Question number 9. How many WrestleManias did The Undertaker miss from his first appearance at one up until his last appearance? In that time period, how many Manias did he miss?
Okay, I'm actually probably going to get this wrong. And hopefully you don't later ask which ones it was.
No, no, I'm
Which
not going to
ones
be
they
that
were.
harsh.
He definitely missed 16, and I'm pretty sure he missed an early one as well. But then 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, basically up until 30, I can easily remember him at a Mania. 33 and 34 was like, he was there. 34 was a big question mark. 35 he missed, definitely. And his last match was 36, we said. So I'm going to say he missed 3 editions of WrestleMania.
You're loving the threes. That is, again, the correct answer. So he missed, as you mentioned, WrestleMania 16 and WrestleMania 35. And the other one he missed was WrestleMania 10.
WrestleMania 10, okay.
Which I did not know before I was researching this topic. The final question, question number 10. How many times did The Undertaker compete for a world championship at WrestleMania?
Oh, actually, not that many times. I said before he did compete at WrestleMania 13. That one I'm very confident of. Um, at 7, because he became world champion very, very soon after his debut. But I'm not sure if it was then. I think maybe it might have been at Survivor Series or something like that. Actually, I think it was at Survivor Series 1991. So I don't think it was around then. And then 92 and 93, 94. Anyway, let's not dive in too deep. Let's settle with that. 13, it was 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Wow, it's a long gap. Because the next time he competed, I'm pretty sure was at 24. No, it wasn't. It was at 23. Then it was at 24. And I think 25, 26, they were all marquee mid-card matches. 27, 28. Okay. Let me just double check going backwards with this one. So it was at 24 against Edge for the world title in the main event, 23 against Batista for the world title in the middle of the card. I actually watched that earlier today, frankly. 13, I'm confident with. Not 14, not 15, not 17, not 18, not 19, not 20. Yeah, I'm pretty confident with those 3. I'm just wondering if there was another one in there. But I'm pretty sure there wasn't. So I'm going to go with those 3.
3 again is the correct answer. Hat trick of 3s as the correct answers for it. So yeah, it was, as you said, WrestleManias 13, 23, and 24 were the only times he competed for a world championship, and each time he was victorious. So he had a very good record at WrestleMania. Then I say you finished with a perfect 10 out of 10.
Did I really?
So obviously you know your Undertaker at
I was not
WrestleMania.
even tracking that. Oh, that's actually a really good result. Much better than the one that we recorded earlier on WrestleMania.
Look, obviously no one can beat you, but maybe some people can match you. So please let us know in the comments below how you did in this quiz. Thanasi, that brings us to the end of this week's edition of the Audible Finish. Next week, we're going to be discussing the much anticipated confrontation between Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, along with, I'm sure, a number of other interesting WrestleMania related matches that are forming as we get closer to this year's showcase of the Immortals. I'm very excited for it. I know you are. Thanasi, it's great to have your company as always, and I look forward to discussing it with you next week.
Thanks for letting me join you.
And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Until next time, we hope everything you do is just too sweet.